of Parliament have been asked now to probe Turkana power deal story on page 7. And British Army, you cannot sue us in Kenya. The British Army wants a case where a soldier is being probed over the murder of a Kenyan in Nanyuki, dropped saying the court has no jurisdiction over them. Story covered on page 10. On the back page, by the way, I want to read a story on now. There's nobody stopping Harambee Starlets in their Africa Cup chase. Interesting. Man United cannot relate in this news. We're talking about this morning. Chris, how do you lose a lead of 2 goals? You know, I do not know. Yeah, and Onana. Maybe it's now time, Man United fans, you know, they had a candid conversation about Onana. It's considered the highest number of goals in the Champions League, 14 so far, in just the group stage. Yeah? And last Saturday, they were telling us about how he's now the top in terms of clean sheets in the league. Clean sheets do not matter. It is things like those that matter. I'll tell you that. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to the newsroom so we can see our top stories. All right, welcome back. Azimio team has welcomed the recommendation contained in the report submitted by the National Dialogue Committee after 3 months of negotiations. The opposition outfit says the report is a win for Kenyans as it has helped quell tension emanating from what it terms as mismanaged elections. The outfit wants a referendum conducted to entrench the recommendations contained in the report into law. Raila's statement brings to the fore questions on whether the country is ready for a referendum, considering the electoral body IEBC is not fully constituted.
We made it clear that we completely disagree with the government on the matter of cost of living. We made it clear that we will support the document ensuing from the talks, but we will treat the hard line on the cost of living at the beginning of another phase of this struggle. We will seek other ways to press the government to listen to the cries of the people and bring down the cost of living. The other ways will include, it will not be limited to, consultations with the people. At all times, we will retain the right to call on the people to take steps that we deem necessary to force the government to lower the cost of living. We also support the document with the proviso that certain aspects must be approved by the people by way of a referendum. To create the office of the leader of opposition or to formalize the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the people of Kenya have to have their say by way of a referendum. Besides, it is a constitutional requirement that such significant restructuring of government must go through a referendum to avoid the mischief that may be played by some people going to court. It is also our stand that this country cannot continue moving forward by being undecided. We have to agree whether we want a parliamentary, presidential system or a hybrid system.
Now, nearly 400 cases of disease outbreak have been reported across the country, with malaria and cholera leading the cases. As Guy Laluda now reports, in 10 counties, they are still on high alert as El Nino rains continue to wreak havoc across the country.
The government continues to intensify emergency response efforts in the counties affected by the floods.
According to government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura, there has been an increase in outbreaks of cholera, recording a total of 391 cases, while Lamu County alone having a record of 94 cases.
The situation in these counties has also led to an increase in disease outbreaks such as cholera, malaria, and diarrhea. Specifically, a total of 391 cases have been reported of diarrhea in Garissa, Kwale, Mandera, and Wajir counties, while 94 cholera cases have been reported in Lamu County alone.
Maura says 10 counties at risk of heavy floods, while death toll still remains 120, with an increase in displaced households standing at 93,432, which translates to 3,324 houses destroyed.
As of today, the government has already distributed food to 12 counties, namely Mombasa, Kwale, Lamu, Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Busia, Kitui, Samburu, and Isiolo counties.
While the rainfall intensity is expected to decrease, Maura says government has set aside 625.8 million shillings to be disbursed to hunger-stricken counties. He notes that at least 12 counties have so far received relief food from the government and non-food items.
The government will also disburse Kenya shillings 625.8 million to benefit approximately 500,000 people or Kenyans in 8 counties under the cash transfer program, aptly named the Hunger Safety Net Funds. These counties are Turkana, Mandera, Marsabit, Wajir, Samburu, Tana River, and Garissa and Isiolo.
So far, that 7 counties have been affected, air transport remaining the only means government can use to reach affected families in the country. Government continues to put up responsible and recovering measures to cushion its netizens.
However, rainfall in these counties is expected to decrease in both intensity and coverage, thus providing a conducive environment to facilitate the repair of infrastructure in order to aid the distribution of essential items such as food, non-food items, and medicine to affected Kenyans.
Government is now cautioning motorists against carrying passengers during heavy flooding.
We take this opportunity to caution and to urge drivers and border operators not to risk injury and death through reckless driving in flood conditions.
Aludagel.
Let's then move on. Legislators from Nyanza region, led by Homa Bay town lawmaker Peter Kaluma and Karachuonyo's Andrew Odipo, have appealed to the government and other stakeholders to address the dire effects of El Nino rains, which have submerged homes in Homa Bay. The flooding in the region comes after Lake Victoria broke its banks.
Homa Bay County has the longest stretch of Lake Victoria in Kenya, and so it lies very low by the lake. Due to the ongoing El Nino flooding, Homa Bay County has been affected like no other county, and I imagine no other area in Kenya. I think the areas which may be equally affected are those bordering the Indian Ocean. You saw what happened in Mombasa. The whole of yesterday night, more than half the population of Homa Bay town constituency living by the lake had to be evacuated. A number of them had to be relocated and be settled in schools. Homes have been swept by the raging floods due to this El Nino.
Karachuonyo is under siege. Most parts are submerged by water. And instead, I have seven wards within the constituency. Only one of them is not touching the lake. The rest are. And those wards which are touching the lake shore are having big problem. Today, they are doing the same. That's the Red Cross. They are giving food in the area. And whatever they are giving, I must admit, is not enough. Although I thank them for that big effort. The effort has helped so many people, but it is still very inadequate. Now, I would say that mine is perennial. All the time when there is heavy rain, we suffer. We also suffer sometimes when we don't have any rain at all. But in the islands, there are heavy downpours. When that happens, the river, particularly Miriu, will bring water from up.
The Senate has condemned 3 cabinet secretaries who failed to show up for a scheduled grilling sanction on Wednesday morning. The 3 Prime Cabinet Secretary, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, Energy CS, David Chilcher, and Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u were on a no-show, with the Senate expressing displeasure with the trio for late communication to the Secretariat of the Senate.
Now, honorable senators, we were scheduled to receive this morning 3 CSs to respond to the questions are listed in the order paper. Unfortunately, we have since received communication from the 3 CSs that they will not be able to attend this session for purpose of responding to these questions.
Prime Cabinet Secretary Foreign and Diaspora Affairs Musalia Mudavadi, Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chichir, and Treasury CS Njuguna Ndung'u have been faulted for failing to show up in the Senate to answer various questions regarding their performance.
It should also occur to this House that this is not the first time the Prime Cabinet Secretary is failing to appear before this House. And Mr. Speaker, if this does not imply attitude, then what does?
Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we also find the governor of Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, who happened to be one time a senator of this great county of Nairobi. We have invited him since November 2022. We are in November 2023, 6 times, and he has never appeared, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we gave that fine because we know he won't even appear tomorrow.
According to the amended standing orders, CSS are mandated to appear before the Senate when summoned to respond to queries regarding performance of their respective ministries. Failure to that, such leaders should be arrested and brought to the House.
And if he doesn't, Mr. Speaker, we are going to invoke Section 19 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, that he should be arrested and brought to the committee, Mr. Speaker.
According to the Speaker of the Senate, Amazon Kingi, the 3 failed to appear before the House after serving a notice hours to the morning session, citing various reasons.
CS in charge of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs is out of the country on delegated duties, and therefore he will not be able to be with us. For those reasons contained in this letter, he is unable to be present today for purpose of responding to that question.
John Matava, Lookuptv.
Lawmakers from Garissa County want ongoing plans to integrate refugees under the Sharika plan stopped, citing discrimination and mismanagement. The members of parliament now accuse Immigration's Principal Secretary Julius B. Talk, who leads the Refugees Affairs Secretariat, of nepotism, expressing 5 out of the 6 recently recruited assistant commissioners of refugee affairs come from his community.
Ali Mansala Yakub, the lawmakers want provision and granting of employment opportunities to be equivalent, especially for the residents of the region, slamming the PS in the Department of Immigration Ambassador Julius Bitok for offering employment opportunities to his relatives in the camp without involving residents and Kenyans in general in the activities of the refugee camp, which they claim is led from the capital city of Geneva.
The United Nations High Commission for Refugees has got an office here, and I think they employ more than 2,000 people. You'll not find a single person. There's only one person that we know who works in the offices of UNHCR here, and that's my own son, and I have to declare that interest, who is basically one of the junior staffs. Nobody else comes from the DAP, nobody else comes from Fafi, and hardly anybody comes even from Kakwa. The Turkanas are as marginalized as we are. Just the other day, Bitok employed 20 clerks, permanent clerks. None of them comes from the north. None of them comes from the refugee hostel areas. They are all split up between Kalenjins and other so-called shareholding communities of this government.
Go to their camp in the DAP. He cannot get in without a clearance from DMO, head of the person. I can't get in there. It's a fortified institution with a lot of laxity. It cannot even control the person. Kenya government cannot even control the personnel who are working for UNHCR. There's a lady who is a deputy country representative. She's the one who is running the Kenya refugee policy. She's called Ivan. She has been here for the last 15 years. Every time she finished 3 years, she's taken for a small operation somewhere else. 3 months, she comes back. Ivana. She left the last 4 months. She's back again, just to make sure the Ushirika plan goes through. Ushirika plan is a hoax without the consultation of the community.
The MPs now want the UNHCR to explain the use of more than $1 billion from the donors, owing to the poor infrastructure inside and outside the camp.
The United Nations World Food Programme uses heavy trucks to transport goods to the DAP and has completely destroyed the road network and has led to areas being cut off from road transport during this El Nino period.
Malim and Yakub have pointed accusing fingers at UNHCR for being the only camp that allows the use of wood for cooking, which has allowed the cutting of trees and soil erosion in the area, with the effects now being felt during the flash floods currently witnessed in the region.
In the world where refugees use firewood as their source of energy, the DAP, Camp and Hagadera, and what do you call Kakuma are the only refugee camps in the world where firewood is used for energy. In any other one, they are given ethanol. Am I right? Sure.
The leaders have faulted the ongoing initiative aimed at transitioning refugee camps into integrated settlements through the transformative multi-year Shirika Plan, formerly known as the Marshall Plan, as the lawmakers' utterances followed a session that had brought together UNHCR, the Immigration Department led by Ambassador Julius Bitok, stakeholders and media on Thursday in an effort to find lasting solution to the challenges in the camps.
We find it utterly unconscionable that UNHCR hasn't found it appropriate to trigger an emergency response to alleviate the loss of lives and the livelihoods for the refugee hosting communities as well as the refugees themselves in those areas we mentioned.
Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv.
So Raila Amolo Odinga says one thing. Now we're going to talk about this morning because we're waiting for him to react yesterday. Yes, he did react. He said they do support the recommendations of the NATCO committee. They do support. But then if you want to listen to that particular statement, again, I'll beg you to listen to him further. Because I had to say that majority of those recommendations are good for Kenyans. Yeah, he did say that. But then, he went right ahead to say, well, now they have to think about a referendum then. And then after that, see to the implementation of those recommendations. But then the question that we're asking this morning is this. If you listen to the voice of Raila Amolo Odinga, listen to the voice of Eugene Wamalwa, Martha Karua. So leaders were speaking from a very different script. The question we're asking this morning is really, when Raila Amolo Odinga says we are going to look for alternative ways then to push the government to bring down the cost of living, has he given up? Or is it done and dusted? Has Raila Amolo Odinga and his team been given what they initially wanted? So the questions we're asking this morning. And do you think Raila Amolo Odinga saying there is a good report for majority of Kenyans, does that stand the waters? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift.
jamaa jo, mazena inflation jo na hii mafuta venye imepanda jo, mmefika at the right time. Mimi nakwambia wachezaji saa hizi tu ni kutoka hapa, kuingia mtaa, kutengeneza sima, wadishifiti, alafu tutane grau.
Leo tuko katika center inaitwa Kimta, ambapo hapa ni sehemu ambapo wanafunzi ama vijana wadogo wanakuja hapa kusoma, wanakuja hapa kukuza talanta yao, na wanakuja pia kujinua kielimu.
Now through Kimta and the groups like Tatua Tatu, through pads, wasichana wataendelea kuendea shule vizuri, at the same time watakuwa healthy.
Yote ni kwa hisani ya Tatua Foundation. Na wakati wote ambapo unacheza Tatua Tatu, kumbuka kwamba 25% inakuja kusaidia masuala kama haya. Kwa hivyo endelea kucheza Tatua Tatu.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home.
When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served.
Let's go. Let's go.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Beautiful, wonderful, glorious. We are having the show that we share entitled Shepherd Voice.
I'm waiting for you to get me to Kenya. That's what I'm waiting
for you.
God is the source of every blessings that flow into your life.
And I know that God is going to bless you and to do a new thing.
Pray, 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 pray.
have the next 1 hour 30 minutes to talk about the NATCO report and the performance of the economy as we do know of it. And this morning, I'm with two gentlemen with their names actually quite monumental. We do have Sankara and Castro in the building this morning. I'll be introducing them once we come back from this introduction. Now, Raila Amolo Odinga has been speaking. You know, we waited for it. The day before yesterday was when he was in Kisii. He did make Kiswahili statements that led the Nation newspaper to say, so probably Raila Amolo Odinga is saying no to this NATCO report. In fact, they intimated that he's calling upon his supporters to come out in large numbers to say no to this report. In fact, he said, wakati huu tutawaita na mjitokeze kwa wingi. That's part of the Kiswahili quote that the Nation newspaper used yesterday. But then he had made himself clear that today was going to be the day, yesterday actually was going to be the day that was going to make himself clear about this particular report. And to say the least, if the online response that we saw from that particular press was anything to go by, right here at Lookuptv, was that the majority of his supporters are disappointed in one Raila Amolo Odinga. So what did he really say? Let's take a look at this particular story. Once we come back and introduce our guest this morning, then our conversation begins immediately at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Kiage Simba.
We made it clear that we completely disagree with the government on the matter of cost of living. We made it clear that we will support the document ensuing from the talks, but we will treat the hard line on the cost of living at the beginning of another phase of this struggle. We will seek other ways to press the government to listen to the cries of the people and bring down the cost of living. The other ways will include, but will not be limited to, consultations with the people. At all times, we will retain the right to call on the people to take steps that we deem necessary to force the government to lower the cost of living. We also support the document with the proviso that certain aspects must be approved by the people by way of a referendum. To create the office of the leader of opposition or to formalize the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the people of Kenya have to have their say by way of a referendum. Besides, it is a constitutional requirement that such significant restructuring of government must go through a referendum to avoid the mischief that may be played by some people going to court. It is also our stand that this country cannot continue moving forward by being undecided. We have to agree whether we want a parliamentary, presidential system or a hybrid system.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're back? Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, we do apologize for that. But anyway, here we are. So that's Raila Amolo Odinga essentially saying he does support the report. In summary, if you're going to take away notes from that, you would pick three things. We support. We're going to look for alternative ways to push the government to lower the cost of living. And number three, it's good for Kenyans, all those recommendations in that report. And number four, sorry, there were four things, is that indeed we're going now to push for a referendum. That's where we are. 4 things that we're going to talk about this morning. And by the way, as we go on with this broadcast as well, I'll be playing you an excerpt of still Raila Amolo Odinga in Kisii the day before yesterday on his ODM recruitment drive. One man who was in that particular committee was also speaking. That is one Kalonzo Musyoka. We'll be taking notes as well. Joining me in the studio this morning, we do have Castro and Sankara. Let me just do that introduction there. I'm going to start with Castro. Here's the thing. I do not know how we're going to read that reaction. But if indeed you're going to summarize that particular statement right there from the ODM leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, Castro, how would you summarize it? If somebody tells you, Castro, help us make sense of that particular submission there by Raila Amolo Odinga, how are you going to summarize it this morning?
Thank you, Simba, for having us together with Sankara. And if you can remember very well, when the NADCO or the committee was setting up and was starting the communication, the negotiations and discussions at Bomas of Kenya, I told you that one thing that we expect, and all roads will lead us to a referendum. And still that has remained, and of course that's where we are heading. And we are heading to a referendum. And I agree that once Azimio and Kenya Kwanza agreed to have a talk, they had an agenda and they had issues that they were going through, and they would discuss. And all these issues, of course, they were on the table, other than Azimio now claiming that maybe they have been shortchanged, or the two parties did not agree on the economic agenda and how the cost of living would be lowered. Of course, much more they have agreed on all aspects of political and leadership of this country, and how the reforms, both constitutional, legal, and policy reforms, on how this thing should be driven.
Yes.
So we are expecting a more chargeful nation, and we are expecting very political high temperatures of politics that will be starting to rise as these people now start hitting on the roads now to try to woo the people again to, of course, embrace these changes and embrace these policy reforms.
That's it. Pretty much. I'll be coming back to you then on his other statements, a proper summary. Sankara, summarize, make sense of that Raila Amolo Odinga statement for any other person who's watching you this morning and wondering, what does that man mean?
Thank you, Simba, for having me here after a very long time. It's good that we are coming in when the discussion is very vital.
Yes.
I would make a few observations and poke holes in the statements made by the Prime Minister Emeritus, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga.
Yes.
It is in the public domain that yesterday the Azimio coalition met and unanimously endorsed to support the recommendations of the NADCO report. It is mind-boggling to hear the person of Raila Amolo Odinga in the public domain speak of supporting the recommendations while opposing the recommendations. The reality coming out of this entire scenario is a manifestation of deceit and let me say political conmanship, that an act that has been mastered by both the executive and the opposition. Because the main question at the moment is the cost of living. And as an economist, I would not agree with you that a mere political convention or a boardroom meeting can solve an economic crisis.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Yes.
So, by Baba saying that he's supporting the recommendation, the MPs unanimously resolving to support every bit of the provisions, I had my reservations. Ab initio had given my opinion that nothing constructive was going to come out for the most affected, the most eager people waiting for the recommendations to come out. The youths have been thrown under the bus. The cost of living, which was the most important and bold question, has not been addressed to finality. Not unless the issue of cost of living, food sustainability, primary health care provision, security and etc. have been addressed. We are not moving anywhere as a nation. We are in the mood of politics now and then. What does Baba mean by continuing to engage the people of Kenya to find alternative ways of pushing the government to provide a bearable cost of living?
Yes.
How? I'm bereaved. You are coming to me and crying with me in the name of consoling me.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work that way. We are vulnerable as the people of Kenya at the moment. So when Baba says he's coming to the people to find alternative ways, we don't have alternative ways. The Constitution is crystal clear on the provisions of Article 1.1, the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. We can only invoke those provisions because this government has not respected the sovereignty of the people of Kenya in this regard. The delegated sovereignty is done in 3 categories: the judiciary, parliament, and the executive. The government has not respected the delegated responsibility to the parliament. Whenever the CSS are summoned in parliament, they do not appear, they dodge. The executive do not respect the court orders.
Yes.
So you see, at this level, when Baba says he's going to engage us on alternative means, the most possible alternative mean is demonstration. And that is catastrophic.
But just before we continue then, this is essentially an introduction to this particular statement. Castro, then let's get into the gist of it this morning on exactly what he said. Castro, when you look at Raila Amolo Odinga saying, these recommendations are good for Kenyans, I'll start from there. Is it not okay for us to ask Raila Amolo Odinga, what was the first reason as to why you took majority of Kenyans to the streets? In fact, the last round of Mandamano that essentially gave birth to these talks, it was coined around only one thing. It was the cost of living. Let's talk about a recommendation that came from that particular committee on the cost of living. Castro.
Sure. You see, when we are talking about the cost of living, Raila Amolo Odinga also is aware, and he lives with the truth that the cost of living and the economy cannot be run in the streets.
Yes.
This is something that is policy recommended, and the policies are formulated, and these policies are then adjudicated to be into laws, and of course the government can use this policy to adjust their performance when it comes to people's cost of living and the economy of the state. And when we are talking about the cost of living, you know, this is what every Kenyan is expecting, that the government will fulfill its promise of lowering the cost of living, which every policy that has been made by the Kenya Kwanza government is leading to trying to resuscitate the economy of the country. And of course, these policies are here, of course, to be able to make the economy not stagnate, other than and not, of course, to fall, other than to make it a gradual rise of this economy.
Castro, I mean, majority of Kenyans are listening to you as well this morning.
Sure.
Yeah, but it was a point that you're making. But every time you speak about that, I feel like Castro is speaking like how majority of these members of parliament and state executives have also been speaking. But in that particular committee, they even invited, if you do remember, planning. Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u to that particular committee to actually advise them on how to go about these particular issues. And you'd like to think, at this particular time, even when the courts are making themselves clear on matters like the housing levy, that those gentlemen who Kenyans sent there could have come up with something proper, at least not every other thing, something proper that Kenyans will rely on and say,
but you see, Simba,
this is it.
You see, Simba,
yes.
The good reason why the streets were being hit by the people and the azimio leadership was the cost of living. That was the good reason why Raila Odinga was calling for demonstration. But the real reason why these demonstrations were being called for was to actually try to woo the government, to manipulate the government to talks with azimio. So here the cost of living in their language was a decoy to bring the government into their footsteps.
You like to think so, Castro? Because,
it.
Because just before I cross over to Sankara then.
That's it.
Let
me tell you.
Here's the line of events.
Today, Raila Odinga is saying that, see, they are looking for other ways to engage the people and, of course, to try to make the government listen to them.
Yes.
And he's saying that he now have consultative meeting with the people. You know what are these consultative meetings that Azimio is talking about? These are consultative meetings to try to woo again the people and, of course, to promise them that once these recommendations are we are done with these recommendations, and of course they are passed. And if you are heading for a referendum where the citizens will decide themselves, other than parliamentary forum, then we shall see that all the recommendations that Azimio and the government has, of course, come to a conclusion with, they'll get through and they'll see the right of the day. And the economy also, the issue of economy will still be an issue and a political, or it will be the issue that the politics that will be running on the issue of cost of living.
On the cost of living.
The cost of living here will be solved by the government sitting down, deciding on the policies on how they can be lower.
That's it.
It is the parliament. Actually, it is not even the executive. It is not even the executive. Because the policies that executive that is trying to propose to the parliament of Kenya and the people, these proposals are to make the economy of country run better, and of course to try to resuscitate the economy. Other than it is the parliament. If Sankara wants to be heard, if Sankara wants to be heard, he will not be heard by the.
Let me tell you something, Castro.
But the MP that Sankara elected, that is the person, the liable, and the person who should be talking about the policies, the policy reforms
statement.
Sankara, just before we run away from Castro, because I'm going to give you as much time as I've given Castro this morning, because there's a point that majority of Kenyans want you to make clear this morning, Castro. And I put that question to you as well. And by the way, Castro, I'm going to play for you a clip of one Kalonzo Musyoka as well, speaking the day before yesterday, immediately after releasing that particular report. Castro, here's the thing. If you look at the events of this NADCO report, Azimio Coalition came in the last minute and introduced 9 fresh demands when these guys were already writing that particular report. Castro, in a way, that tries to show you what, Castro? Because if you look at those 9 demands, all of them, by the way, were touching on a cost of living, trying to release more money, reduce taxation. Top of that was reducing tax on fuel from 16% to 8%. Also cutting down on government travel, also releasing 16,000 petty offenders from prison so the government can release more money to pump into the economy. That be it what it is right now, Castro. But does it not show you that? Does it not show you that then, that at one point, the real reason as to why those guys sitting there discussed on the cost of living, they failed on it?
No, they didn't fail on the cost of living, discuss on the cost of living, because they didn't have to sit in bomas of Kenya for the months, 90 days, trying to figure out that, to tell the government that to cut down the taxes.
Castro,
they didn't have to
somebody's
do
going to
that,
ask you,
because that is a parliamentary delegation, actually. That's their right and their task to do that.
You are a wise man enough, avoid the
But let me tell you,
I'm going to give you all that time, by the way. You see all this time, I'm going to give you all this time. Yes.
What we are trying to get from the bombers of Kenya was a rigor, was a constitutional and a policy reform agenda. So there was no way that the cost of living or the economy was to be discussed in that table on the NADCO. But the NADCO was to recommend on the issues of constitutional crisis, was to recommend on the issue of electoral and boundaries commission, was to discuss about the leadership and governance of this country. Those are the proposals that this committee had to agree on. The cost of living that every Kenyan is even me, and I'm feeling that pain of the cost of living. But it is the government and the Parliament of Kenya to decide on this, the cost of living, and how to lower this cost of living. And every agenda and every policy that has been made by the government of Kenya and the Kenya Kwanza government, supported by Azimio in Parliament, is to try to lower this cost of
I'll be
living.
coming back to you on that because there's a caveat on that. Sankara, let's table it. I know you're gonna respond to whatever Castro is presented, but let's table it like this. You see, when Raila Amolo Odinga says, well, let's look for alternative ways to push this government then to lower the cost of living. Do you know what he's saying this morning? I'll read for you. In that particular a communique that we received from Raila Amolo Odinga in his camp yesterday, is now urging all employers, Sankara, to defy the government on the basis of the High Court's ruling to stop remitting housing levy. Sankara, let's begin from that. That now, Raila Amolo Odinga is also giving us these alternative ways of trying to push the government, all right, to reduce the cost of living, starting with the housing levy. Do you think that's a better alternative than going to the streets, Sankara?
Well, allow me say this. Yes. The president is a product of a court ruling. It is only sensible that he respect court rulings. It is in the public domain that the Supreme Court declared that William RUTO was democratically elected as the people's president of the Republic of Kenya.
He's not a product of the courts.
Listen, he is a product of the court because
the court only justified
I'm the one speaking.
Yes, Sankara,
and
continue,
if there is any legality in my statement, I stand liable.
Yes.
I have said, and I will repeat,
yes.
President William RUTO is a product of the long chain, a court declaration. Because after the elections were contested, the opponents went to court. It is the final arbiter. The court declared that it was democratically elected. I'm just trying to say it is in the right sense that respect court rulings. Had we not respected, or the dissenting Kenyans not respected the court ruling, would be in a state of anarchy at the moment. So, when Raila tells the people, the employers, to defy deductions to the housing levy,
yes,
it is right. Are we going to listen to the court, to the executive? I mean, I had said in my initial statement that we are in a very precarious situation, a situation where the executive is behaving like a narcissist government. They do not care for anything. This government neither respects the institutions that acts on directly delegated power from the people of Kenya.
Yes.
That is parliament. The executive, under the through the ministers, do not honor invitation to appear before the Senate. When the Senate calls you to grill you over particular issue of public interest, it is not the Senate grilling you. It is the people of Kenya grilling you through the Senate or parliament. Yesterday, Juguna Ndungu, who is at the center of the cost of living, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, they all dodged, and the CS Energy.
Sure.
They dodged the Senate committee. These people are preferring even impeachment charges against them, because once you don't respect the independent tribunals and institutions that are directly mandated by the people of Kenya, you are just fighting the constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. We have the courts. The judiciary draws these powers directly from the people. The moment the executive, which is a separate arm of the government, wants to twist, control, and be the decision maker in a situation where these people work hand in hand, where are we headed to? So if the courts have said that the deductions are illegal, who is the president to come and issue fresh orders that the deductions continue? And look at even the, I'm speaking of this in regards to also the just contested the SHIF,
yes,
the digital healthcare,
yes,
and the primary healthcare schemes. All these have been put on hold by the High Court of Kenya, pending its hearing in February. The president redirected the CS Health to ensure that they by December, all these proposals, the public gives their proposals so that it by January 1st, the healthcare scheme is enacted.
Yes.
Don't you see the situation I'm trying to talk about, where the executive is working on its own, the judiciary is on its own? Then what are they telling the people of Kenya? That, you see, there is no government here, you are on your own. That is not the case. So once the court has pronounced itself that the deductions are illegal, the statement ends there. They can only contest it in a court of law, not by giving some authoritative declarations that seems to contravene the directives given by the court. The courts do not act on a hearsay. The courts act on the legality, the constitutionality of any piece of legislation. and the fairness that it serves the people of Kenya. Yeah, so it is only right that these fundamental rights and freedoms are protected. The only protector here at this current situation is the courts, because Parliament has failed. Parliament has failed its oversight roles. It is nowhere. Even the county governments have failed us, because the primary role of a legislature is to oversight, propose legislations and enacted into law. And not working with the government does not mean that everything the executive proposes, it is yes and yes sir response. Castro talked of something like the proposals that have been made by the government. In fact, he was contradicting himself, because he said at first that all the proposals that have been made by the executive are for the benefit of the people of Kenya. I wanted, and that's why I cautioned Castro to avoid pedestrian argument. I want him to be very clear and bold on every particular provision that this government has proposed, be it on cost of living, be it on, the cost of living is the blanket, because it affects it is about the services, that the cost of, or the amount of money that we give out to acquire services. Or buy goods. So it touches on everything. I wanted him to be clear on the proposal that the executive has given, as far as education is concerned, as far as health is concerned, as far as public security is concerned. Then tell us all these proposals are in the interest of the people of Kenya. It is pedestrian for him to sit here and tell, not all listeners or our viewers have the acumen to determine and to get these terms directly. You have to digest it to them in a language they best understand. So tell them exactly the piece of legislation and translate it how it affects the cost of living. When I say it affects, it's not negative. Even positively it can impact. So that is a conversation that has been engendered by the Kenya Kwanza MPs. And I'm seeing you behaving like the same. You have to take an independent position as a young man of this country. I told you Castro is not a pedestrian name that you can come and afford to lie to the people of Kenya.
This is Sankara.
You are a defender.
This is Sankara, everything that I've been telling
Sankara, sorry, Castro. Just a final question that I want to, before I cross over to you this morning. Same question that I put to Castro is that, and you know what I said, Castro, you might also indulge us at this particular point. Do you know what I said? And a couple of friends, we said, let's wait for the ruling that's going to happen from the High Court on specific areas of the Finance Act 2023. And then they told me, Simba, you know what's going to happen now? The Azimio coalition is going to ride on this. And they said this. So immediately after the High Court ruling, if it rules against the Finance Act, you will hear the Azimio guys go to the streets and say, munaona vile tumewasukuma. Sisi ndio hata tumeenda hapo kutini, make sure hiyo Finance Act imeanguka yote. And guess what happened? Kalonzo Musyoka was actually on point. It delivered on those specific lines. Comes out and says, and we're going to play that clip and have a look at it. Comes out and says, tuliwaambia kwa hiyo report, mambo ya ushuru lazima wakate. Kutaka kusikia, mnaona sasa vile koti imesema hiyo housing levy ni unconstitutional. Hiyo mambo ya health wameweka kando. Here's a question I want to ask. Castro, on that basis alone, that if indeed the courts in this country have the audacity to guide the government in the correct path, that this is why we think it's unconstitutional, this is why you should not implement it, this is why this particular tax should not be implemented. Sankara asked Castro the same question, and I said, if indeed you are true to that fact, that once we go to that particular table of negotiation, the cost of living, at least get one thing that we can give to our people. The summary for all the comments and suggestions we got yesterday when we were live on that particular event is that the Azimio coalition has failed Kenyans to negotiate on the cost of living. Sankara, do you share the same sentiment? 1 minute before we cross over to Castro.
I share the same sentiments because had Azimio coalition been honest to the people of Kenya and to the cost they had taken, Simba, I'm this person that if it doesn't serve my interest, if it's against my principles of integrity, I withdraw. I walked out, and that's why I left Kenya Kwanza at the helm of power. Yes. Because I found or realized that whatever they were agitating for is contrary to what they are actually speaking.
Yes.
So If Azimio was serious enough about the cost of living, they would have withdrawn from the talks. Because as an economist, I've told you, economic resuscitation is a process, not an event. It starts from production to consumption. And when I talk of production, that is the elephant in the house. In a country where the economy is pegged on, it's a consumer economy, an import economy, the cost of living cannot be reduced or solved by a mayor sitting in a boardroom where lazy politicians are biting mandazis and sipping teas like madmen in the streets. It requires an economic input, the intellect that connects the economic production itself. So here, we are talking about taxation. We are talking about an enabling environment where enterprise or entrepreneurship is given a priority. All these factors that I'm trying to mention were neither here nor there in the NADCO committee table. And that's why I said ab initio that nothing constructive was going to come out of it, because the cost of living is a chain of events. Look at now, I have been saying all along that IMF and World Bank are currently in our state house. And these are historically recognized institutions of impunity that have done everything possible within their means to ensure that African countries, and particularly the least developing countries, the LCDs that the United Nations had convened even on 5th of March of this year, to find an avenue on how the world's richest and energy moguls are going to provide the 0.02% of their revenue, translating to about $500 billion to these African countries, have not been provided. These are the people who determine the cost of fuel. These are the people who determine, World Bank has a particular way of working.
For crossover.
Look at when it comes to agricultural production. The World Bank has insisted. They said in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, and some other country here, that they had ensured 100% certification of seeds. The certified seeds has got a long time impact on the soil. The organic production of food ensures sustainability. The certified seeds, we use certified fertilizers. And the moment you saw Kenya Kwanza government obsessed with fertilizer and subsidy, I knew very well from an economic perspective that IMF is in charge, World Bank is in charge. So a lot of these things add up to the cost of living. And that's why not unless these policies are revisited, reanalyzed, and made suitable and protective to the local economy, the growing economy, we're headed nowhere. This will be a talk or a mere talk in the streets.
Castro, let's then paint this picture. And that's the big question. And I'm preempting it because we're going to talk about it. There's a peculiar scenario here right now, Castro. And you wonder, why did we get in at all? Because now it looks as if the opposition and the government are going to be on one side to push for a referendum, Castro.
Exactly.
See what Raila Amolo Odinga is saying? Raila Amolo Odinga is saying now, all these proposals are good. They're good for fellow Kenyans.
And they're better.
And they're better for fellow Kenyans, if I may use your words, Castro. The only thing we're going to do is push for a referendum to make sure that they're implemented. Castro, it looks as if one, President Dr. William Ruto, and one, Raila Amolo Odinga, have got into a handshake now, officially, to push Kenyans and campaign for a referendum. Number one, to start the office of the opposition, to entrench the office of Prime Cabinet Secretary, to make sure that CDF and then GAF essentially goes to the members of parliaments and then the county ward reps. That scenario, we didn't foresee it. It's now clear. How do you think it settles with the opposition supporters? Do they realize that yet? That Raila Amolo Odinga is essentially saying, support the government in this referendum drive.
Exactly. That's what they are saying. Both honorable gentlemen Raila Amolo Odinga and His Excellency President William RUTO all along knew what they were to settle on. They knew what they were looking at even when they were settling this dialogue.
Yes.
They knew that the end game, what we are looking at is to settle our political quarrels and wrangles. You know,
that was it. Nothing on the cost of living and all that. Castro.
You know, I said the cost of living, what Sankara and his Raila Amolo Odinga they were doing was a decoy. They were trying to manipulate Kenyans to get into the streets on the cost of living, but what they wanted at the end of the game is to sway the government, to manipulate the government, and of course to compromise the government onto these talks. Today they achieved that talks, but they got into these talks when President William RUTO also needed to settle on the official opposition office of the official opposition leader. He wanted also to settle on the NGCDF to be entrenched in the constitution. Also, he wanted to settle on the establishment of a prime cabinet secretary, office of the prime cabinet secretary.
How peculiar is your argument when Raila Amolo Odinga is here telling Kenyans not to pay the housing levy? How peculiar is it that they knew exactly? Because if they do not pay, then that's still Raila Amolo Odinga fighting the president on his major proposals to run this government.
You know, I also listen to what they are not telling us. That's a fact. So whatever they are telling us is we are coming for consultation with the people. But the consultations here will also rotate around the cost of living. But again, it's rotating around the cost of living, but they have something they have settled with the government. And this something they have settled with the government is the major agenda. It is the real reason why they need to get to the people. Because there is something that they need to be, the people to know and the people to embrace these legal and constitutional changes that that it's coming on our way. So that is the major and the real reason why. Issue of talking about and advising the government on the cost of living and how to cut the taxes, cut costs on the production, and of course enabling environment for manufacturing and a good business environment. Of course, it's good for the country, and it's a good reason why Raila Odinga needs to go to the people. If Raila Odinga, of course, today declares that, say, we are coming to agree and to talk to you how we shall establish this official opposition leader, then the people might disagree with him. But he has to come through and carve all the communications, his political communications, carve every negotiations with the people, and carve every political idea he has that is involved in this document, or to the cost of living. So everything will be tied on the cost of living. This bold step for Raila Odinga to get to the people, to try to woo the people, and, of course, support this NADCO recommendation.
That's it. Sankara, I would like us to go for a tiny breather right here on the Morning Drift. Once we come back, Castro, I'll be playing for you the clip of one Kalonzo Musyoka.
But before we go, Castro, you need to be informed.
Sankara, can we do that after the break?
I'm not a Raila Odinga supporter. What you call was a decoy. Me and Raila doing in the street. I was not in the streets. I'm this person who takes independent position. I'm never swayed by political or tribal affiliation. As you do. So it is very wrong, and you need to apologize to say, I cannot take the people of Kenya to go and die in the streets because your government is prepared for nothing but mandaman. You see, floods are sweeping people. They haven't released anything. So your government is prepared for nothing. The only thing that this Kenya Kwanza government can handle with a lot of accuracy and proficiency is to kill the people of Kenya through the that is not protection. The government
gentlemen, let's go for a break. Let's go for a break. Once we come back, we continue.
Welcome to Zahara Gardens, located in the serene Rosegate Nashu area of Dagoretti Motarakwa Road at Shell Lusingeti. Zahara Gardens is a haven of tranquility, margin affordability, and wholesome family living. What's more, It is conveniently located just 300 meters off the proposed Rosegate-Nashu-Suswa Link Road, currently being tarmacked. You simply cannot afford to miss this deal of a lifetime. To book a plot, call 0723 979797 or visit us on 4th Avenue Towers along 4th Ngong Avenue off Bishop Road. Zahara Gardens is a product of Fusion Estates. Fusion Estates, your land ownership partner.
Once again, tuko hapa Angel Center for Abandoned Kids, all because of you.
My name is Catherine Wanjiru. I am the admin, Angel Center for Abandoned Children. Our founder is Wamaitha Mwangi. We currently have 64 children, 32 going to school, and among those 32, 2 are special children, and we are left at the home with 32. Now the toddlers and the infants. To the RUTO Foundation, thank you so much for remembering us. Guys, we lack words. We lack words. Amazing. We don't know what to say. Thank you for remembering us. You made a promise and you have delivered. And may God bless you. To my fellow Kenyans, as usual, cheza loto, sio ndoto. Angel Center tumeshinda loto.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home.
When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served.
Let's go. Let's go.
RO.ke.
Welcome back. This is the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. In case you are just joining us, you are with Sankara and Castro. Now, just before we went on a break, there was a situation that I put Castro to sort of paint a picture on. Because it now looks as if, as from next year, there will be a referendum drive in the country that will be supported by both the president and one, Raila Amolo Odinga. We're going to talk about that. But then on the basis of that NADCO report, which Raila Amolo Odinga is saying, well, is a good thing for Kenyans, Kalonzo Musyoka spoke about it. That's the same question that I'm going to put to one, Sankara, right here in the studio. Let's watch it. That was the day before yesterday. They were in Kisii on their ODM recruitment drive. And Kalonzo Musyoka, fresh from appending his signature on that report, had this what to say. Let's take a look.
Military, we're going to attack.
His co-principal and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka lauded the court's judgment on declaring House levy unconstitutional, adding that the Azimio coalition will not relent until VAT had been scaled down from 16% to 8% by the government.
Nchi gani inaweza wakati wa shida kama sasa kupandisha ushuru? Wengine wanaleta economic stimulus, sio kufanyia wananchi madharau na dhuluma ya kuongeza ushuru. Tukajaribu kuwaeleza, hawakusikia. Leo hii nashukuru mahakama kuu, the next court in line, our appeal court judges wamekubaliana na msimamo wa azimio la umoja wa Kenya, wakatupilia mbali ushuru wa inaitwa in-housing tax. Hatunatoa, kama hujui imetolewa tukiwa hapa. Simba ulifanya vizuri kutuita, tukasikia uamuzi wa mahakama kuu, not the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, 3 judges. Wakasema hii koti hii ushuru wa nyumba ni unconstitutional. Kwa hivyo hapo wameanguka flat.
Aludagel for Lookuptv.
That's it. As I look, and Sankara, just before we look at what Raila Amolo Odinga has been talking extensively on that particular one, here's the thing. I want you to listen to one, Kalonzo Musyoka, and probably start asking the right questions. I mean, you were leading those communication talks. You were leading. You were a co-chair. And so you get out of that particular process, which was an 89-day process, Sankara. Then when you are on the stage or you have your supporters, you look for the right words to talk about that particular issue. You start castigating the government as well. But you were given a responsibility, Sankara, for crying out loud.
Allow me inform the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka that number one, the court did not act on the interest of Azimio la Umoja. The court operates on the fairness, the legality, or the constitutionality of a particular piece of legislation. That is not what Azimio stood for. Kalonzo Musyoka should be told or reminded that the court acted on the basis and anchors of constitutionality, not the Azimio, naysay, near or there. Number two, I want to inform Kalonzo Musyoka that within my powers, if I had the powers, I would have ordered for his immediate arrest. And everyone who sat in that committee be made, and the underlining word here is made, to pay back any salary that they withdrew in terms of allowances, any spending that was done in that particular meeting. You cannot afford to take over 80 days in a committee, sitting daily and taking tea. I talked of politicians biting mandazi and lazily sipping tea. I was actually referring to this NADCO committee. Then you go to a public podium and try to attack while defending. What Kalonzo and his henchmen are trying to do is to contain the people of Kenya. They are now in a political mode. At this particular point in time, it is only sensible that the people of Kenya take an independent position, devoid of their political affiliations or tribal inclinations. Because what the government, the executive in this case, and the oppositions are doing is to play mind games with the people. It is a blame game situation. Let me tell you, when I hear of the Aslanomics equate our economic, their bottom line, not bottom line, sorry, but their bottom up economic model to the Singaporeans' economy, those things do not go hand in hand. There they appreciate 3 things, MPH, that is meritocracy, honesty, and pragmatism. A clear context that misses in our political engagement. You would ask yourself today, is Kalonzo being honest? No. The Singapore economy that Kalonzo and Baba keeps on quoting lacks even in his own public engagement. How do you become honest with yourself when you co-chair a committee for over 80 days, then go out there and telling the people of Kenya that we told them and they refused? What were you doing there? Withdraw and walk away.
In a negotiation environment where you've been given 90 days to deliver a report, Can you give it to Kalonzo in one way or another, Sankara? Are you just going to call him a total failure for failing to deliver what majority of Kenyans sent him there?
What we have in Kenya is a failed opposition led by people like Kalonzo Musyoka. So my bottom line is Kalonzo is a failure.
Yes.
You cannot sit in that committee. I had told you when these people were reconstituting to sit at the Bomas, we were here. I tried to give my opinion on what it should look like. We needed actually continuous briefing on the ongoings at the Bomas, so that whatever comes out as the final proposals do not find us as a mere surprise, but something we've been prepared for. We would have known if the meeting is taking the right direction or the wrong trajectory. But all this were kept, and now they came out at the last minute only to go and try who Kenyans. I want to tell him and any other politician out here thinking that Kenyans are full. You can lie to some people sometime, and sometimes some people, but not all the people all the time. There comes a time that even if we go for the plebiscite or the referendum that the opposition chief is calling for, it will be a contest of three people. A contest between Raila Amolo Odinga, William Ruto versus the people of Kenya, and we will win. No matter what, even if they try to steal the referendum, we will win.
That's it. But by the way, that introduces the next chapter of our conversations, Castro. You know what? We have an opposition in this country.
Yes.
And so far, up until now, by the way, remember since 2013 to date, some people are saying this is the strongest opposition we've seen. If you remember the famous handshake, majority of critics said, well, they killed the opposition government in the previous government. That now we are seeing the efficacy of the opposition. We're seeing majority of even the cases that are going to court, by the way, which if you dig deeper, they are essentially also fueled and financed by the opposition. Now, Raila Amolo Odinga is asking Kenyans to support a referendum. You know what? If you listen to the words of RUTO, he's also saying, well, I'm going to make sure that it's implemented. Now, let me read for you one of the instances here, or one of the comments here by one Nyanga Tomi, all right? Who's saying that if indeed we are going to introduce a referendum to support these proposals, then it should be stopped. And this is what they're saying, that as mere leader, Raila Odinga should not impose a referendum at the time Kenya is trying to get on track following years of looting, plunder, and pilferage of public resources by Uhuru Kenyatta and the team. The committee changes can be effected in Parliament. Please, Dr. Ruto, no referendum. Castro, this is a scenario that if indeed the President and Ruto spoke, that it means that Ruto expects the President to go and speak to his members of Parliament. Sorry, Ruto expects Raila Amolo Odinga to go and speak to his members of Parliament in our house and tell them, once a referendum or any other proposal is tabled in this government based on that NACO report, pass it. Even if there's going to be a debate of whether we're going to a referendum or not, pass it. Is this officially then
and
the death of opposition?
And they already did that yesterday.
That's what he did yesterday. They were in an azimio parliamentary forum.
Yes.
And of course, Raila Odinga agreed with whatever NADCO proposed. And of course, they agreed that these proposals, they are better for our people and for the country.
I like the way Castro keeps using the word better.
That's true, it's better. They're better for our country.
So you are
the Kenya Republic.
You are convinced that they are better for our country? No, Castro, just to be honest. Are you convinced?
It's my time. It's my time.
I know.
No, it's my time.
Are you convinced?
It's my time. It's my time, and I said they are better, and I'm not under influence because they are better for the country. And but this is not the Raila Odinga that I knew.
Yes.
We are having a very weak opposition this time around. Very weak.
Is it up until now?
Not up until now. Up until
they
did a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta. That's when the weakening of the opposition began.
Castro, will you say that? Because immediately
and let me tell you.
Yes.
If you look at how meticulous Ruto's brigade when they were being called Tanga,
yes,
and how these people, how they were meticulous criticizing the government, the Uhuru Kenyatta's policies that we are doing. And everything that these people criticize, of course, it was getting down onto Uhuru Kenyatta. There's nothing that these people criticize the government that Uhuru Kenyatta won as a president. These people, they were very meticulous. The likes of Rigathi Gachagua, the likes of Didi Nyoro, Kimani Ichung'wah, Silvana Soro, these people, they are very meticulous when they are delivering their message on criticizing this government.
Yes.
But there's no one in opposition that would match the kind of opposition, the kind of critics that these people are trying to do, or they did during their time when they were trying to, of course, search for this government. And when we are talking about Raila Odinga sanctioning his members of parliament, azimio members of parliament, to go in parliament and support this bill that will be brought in the house, the NADCO policies that have been agreed on. Already they have settled on them. They have settled on them that these proposals, they are good, and we shall support them.
That's it.
The question that the government and opposition now will have is whether we are going to have a popular referendum choice, whether we shall go it popular or we shall have it in parliament. Parliamentary. Because Raila Odinga has already agreed that we must choose between three. We must choose between presidential, parliamentary, or hybrid. What does he tell you? That we are heading for a referendum.
Is there a need to go to a referendum based on your argument this morning? Because even indeed, Raila Odinga is telling his members of parliament, well, we support this, and they're good for Kenyans. So that means when they go into that national house, those that do not need necessarily to go to a referendum will be passed quick and faster that.
Yeah, sure.
Then why do we need a referendum? And that's what the likes of Nyangatumi are asking this morning.
But you know, the referendum here is, there are some policies that even the delegated power may not decide for the people. When we are changing the structural and leadership and the governance of this country, the people need to decide.
Yes.
The sovereign power belongs to the people, and the people to decide whether we need this structural change of our government.
Yes.
Because the proposal of course, increment of CDF and entrenching CDF into constitution does not need us to go to a referendum.
Yes.
But when we come to introduction of an office, then the people have to decide. Do we exactly need a premier? Do we need office of the official opposition leader? So this is something that we'll call dialogue, and we'll call a conversation and consultation with the people of the Republic of Kenya. And that's the dire need to have a referendum.
Sankara, listen to this. And Sheila, if you can this morning, again, could you please go back to the Standard this morning, front page. So we see exactly what Raila was saying. It's actually right there. And this is Raila Odinga saying that the cost of living must drop. And this is what he said on that particular headline for the Standard, Sankara. He kept on saying, and I'll read it for you this morning, that, and I want to listen to his words, that the dialogue team dropped the ball on the state of the economy. All right? That's exactly what we have. That the dialogue team dropped the ball on the state of the economy, but they will exploit all avenues to see life becoming affordable for Wananchi. That the dialogue team dropped the ball on the state of the economy. And then after that, Sankara, I'm going to read for you again on exactly the area that essentially touches on Raila Odinga. He goes right ahead to say, but if you look at all those proposals, by the way, Sankara, two of them will take us straight to a referendum. Like, you can't actually think the majority of them are going to be passed in parliament. The rest of them, they will sit in parliament and they'll pass them. But on the office of the opposition leader and the office for a prime cabinet secretary, PM, and in fact the constitution says as a PM as opposed to a prime cabinet secretary, we have to go for a referendum. Sankara, those are two. And I keep on saying they're conflicting. The Raila Odinga is here castigating the dialogue team for dropping the ball on the cost of living. But he puts that on the side and says, well, we're going to look for ways to bring this down. fact, very tough words. According to the standard, the cost of living must drop. But then on the side, on this particular positions, is that, well, the majority of the proposals are good, so let's go for a referendum and then create the office of the PM and the opposition leader. Sankara, again, help us understand those two statements side by side.
Allow me to say, Raila Odinga is behaving like a state agent sent to contain the people's expectation in the midst of a crisis. In this regard, going to a referendum ain't an issue. A constitution is a living document.
Yes.
In so saying, I'm very cognizant of the need to readjust the constitutional provisions to align with the current political, economic, and social situation in the country. By adding further, it is not making sense. Or the question I would ask, is it really necessary to go for a referendum now to create more political offices? Look at the provisions of the Constitution 2010.
Yes.
The COK Constitution 2010 is already a burden to the taxpayers. Kenya has one of the most paid members of parliament in the world. Kenya has one of the hugest executive in the world. Look at the current President Ruto's cabinet. Go to the economic advisors. Look at the chauffeurs they are using. One person having 5 cars. These are fuel guzzlers. They use these vehicles on a daily basis. You saw when they were planting trees, Murkomen traveled all the way from Nairobi on a chartered plane to Homa Bay to plant one tree and fly back to Mombasa and back to Nairobi. Had that money been put aside and given to the county commissioners to coordinate with the chiefs and the jobless youths to plant and take care of these trees, do you want to tell me that Murkomen was going to fly on a daily basis to Homa Bay to water his one tree? That is PR stunts. So, by looking at the current economic situation, it is not the right time to go for a referendum. And if going for a referendum is an urgent need, then it should not be to create positions. In fact, in my own opinion, if we were to do a referendum today, it should be done to reduce the bloat of the executive, to reduce the number of representation. Imagine a country where we have a president,
yes,
a deputy president, a governor, 47 of them, each one with a deputy, a senator, with a fully funded office. All these people, we have ministers with their assistants, because this government, I said, do not respect the courts.
Yes.
Those people still continue calling themselves chief administrative secretaries, besides the court declaration on the invalidity of those titles and offices. So we have permanent secretaries. We have MCS. How many are there? Are they over 2,000?
Does it?
So? So all these people are depending on us and already economically burdened citizens to finance them. Then you create an illegal office like the one for Musalia Mudavadi. I would not shy off calling the office of Musalia as illegal, besides being his political student. It doesn't mean that when I support you or in agreement with you, then I agree even with the legalities and the legalities you intend to perpetuate in my eyes. No, that position is not relevant. It is irrelevant, by the way. Musalia can serve better as a CS Foreign Affairs. It is allowed. Why must he be the head of Prime Cabinet Secretaries? We want to solve political egos by creating positions. You have Mwaura speaking for government, Hussein Mohammed speaking for State House. The one is reporting from Radisson Blue, the other one is reporting from State House. What a nonsense. And then you're telling us we create more positions. We have Kimani Ichung'wah, who is the majority leader in the parliament. We have Opiyo Wandayi, who is the minority leader. You want to bring Raila Amolo Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, former vice president, prime minister emeritus, to be the opposition leader with 2 deputies. What are they deputizing? What are they representing? Are we short of representation? We are overrepresented. Even China, one of the largest economies in the world today, do not enjoy the representation we have in Kenya. Our MPs are behaving like angels. They are being paid well. Theirs is to go in parliament, speak nonsense, shout at the top of their voice, and the people are suffering. I want to warn these people that the sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. Do not misuse the peace, the love, and the calmness Kenyans have expressed towards them. It is only imperative that they are going to be considerate enough to take into consideration the plight of the people of Kenya. The conversation now henceforth, and that's why we said as Linda Jamii, we are going to focus on the conversation of economic resuscitation, where policies must be reanalyzed, restructured, to align with a feasible economic model in the country. Because what is ailing us as a nation, or African countries in majority, we aligned ourselves towards the colonial economic models. The architecture of current world economic models is not in favor of African economies or redeveloping or developing economies. Because the countries that provide us what we call aid, you know, let me tell you something, and I will use this proverb as a laker, one who comes from the lake. It's more conversant with me. You give fish to a man, you feed him for a day. You show a man how to fish, you feed him for the rest of his life. The government here, and I would explain further, that if I'm given fish, I may grow laziness to an extent that I can't look for any alternative and wait for the fish to be brought to me. So in as much as the foreign, there are several reports that if you can read from the Global Financial Integrity, I mean the Catholic, it's called CAFOD and blah, blah. All these point at a situation where the world economic giants have structured our economy to depend on foreign aid. What they bring in form of loans, the interest are so much. China is also here with the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. And all these sorts combined together. So our economy should be the conversation. The conversation should not be the government to go and declare that the cost of fuel is going down. Yet the government is acting like a subservient arm of the IMF and the World Bank. No, we must first dissociate. And that's why I said it was our wish that we elected a very wise president who was going to get the difference between working together but independently with both the IMF and the World Bank. Selling off KICC, selling off KPC, selling off all these parastatals. And the most important one is KICC. I am pretty sure that even the president, for the first time he came to Nairobi, he could not locate where he was. He used the KICC towers to locate his direction. Does it make sense to sell KICC? And if someone comes in and says, well, I bought KICC, now I'm going to restructure it and remove the towers. Where will we go? People like us, we come to the city for the first time, we use these towers as your center. Next time you will hear the president saying, we can go and hire some hotel somewhere, we can lease out our parliament. No, the president must act with restraint. This is a PhD holder. This is not a primary school dropout behaving like, some of the MPs we have. I really have high regards for the president. But what he does, the moment he took power, he said, and I can quote, nikiweka tu Biblia chini hivi, I'm assuming that the Bible is still in the president's hands invisibly. No one can tell. Hajaweka Biblia chini. Because aliingia pale, bei ya mafuta ndio hiyo, shwa, bei ya unga huko juu. Alafu alisema, the moment naweka tu Biblia chini, cartels watajua wajui. Before you cut me short, Simba, on the cartels watajua wajui, there has been controversy over the importation of 17 billion crude oil and blah, blah. You know, to get a duty-free importation, this is done by the Treasury on advice from the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, the current question of irregularity exposes the dishonesty, the corruption in the government sector, where a parastatal vehicle can be used to ferry goods that are imported by a government official through the proxies and brought to the market only for the retailers to reject it on the basis of standards. It is substandard. So are we really building our economy by importing substandard items? Yet there is a lot of land here. if we were to something to go by, if former President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, Dr. William Ruto, the current president, and all these politicians were to be asked to donate 10 acres of their land to produce crops in Kenya, I'm telling you, we are going to have surplus. Land is here. Yes, yes. Why are you importing substandard stuffs and we have the ability? Castro here can dig from morning to evening. I have seen him on the farm. Personally, I can fish from morning to evening. You bring us imported fish from China. You want us to import maize from Congo. Countries that are suffering that we are better off. I mean, no. We have to reanalyze our policies.
Gentlemen, I want us to move in the next part of our discussion this morning then. So it looks as if whether we like it or not then, we're faced by a referendum. And it's interesting, Castro. I'm going to do a poll. I don't know which side you are. I can already see a no.
He's in government.
I can already see a no from Sankara. Just before I read for you this particular question, I'll ask you the question that I want to ask you next. Are you going to vote yes or no?
No, we haven't seen whatever proposal. No, we haven't seen whatever proposal in the bill that is being brought. Let us be real. Yes, Castro. We are talking on whatever opposition leader Raila Odinga empted.
But we do not.
Empted something yesterday.
Supporting it.
So he empted something yesterday, and that's whatever we have been discussing. So whatever the bill is being proposed, Castro, of course we shall be able to decide on whatever side we shall take.
Castro, this point is quite good. Castro, hold on. Let me rephrase. You know this man said that he might. No, you know this man said he might not be able to relocate KICC again. No, he can start now advising his rule of laws when he coming here to locate Tomboya statue. Let me ask this question properly then, because I think my question was not that specific. Two of them are going to be non-referendum. And we've seen exactly it's going to be. There's going to be an office of the opposition leader with 2 deputies. We already see the form that's going to take. We're already going to have a PM in this country as well. Those ones we know. And we do know that for us to actually have that, that is not going to be done through a parliamentary process. That has to go through a referendum. It's changing the constitution, Castro, as it is. On those 2, only Castro, do you vote yes or no?
You see, Simba.
It is not a matter
Castro, no, you see, Simba. Let me talk. Of course, I was very silent when he was talking, and he doesn't want me to talk.
It is a yes or no. Stop beating around the bush.
Castro is a yes or no.
Let me tell you.
Castro, I want to ask the question again.
Every economy, the economies
Castro,
of
do you want to
the country.
Castro, you know, Castro, you know you have like an entire 6 minutes.
Exactly.
I'm going to ask
it's
again.
Fine. Castro, so you let me explain.
Castro, let me ask again. I've not even asked the question.
I have to give a reason. Let me start by giving a reason why. Let me start by giving a reason. Let me give a reason.
Yes or no?
From my explanation, you'll be, of course, every Kenyan will know whatever line we. And I'll go to tell my people, you know, I'm the MP of the youth in my area. Nikifika pale wananiita MP wa majeshi. So I'll go and tell them whatever side we shall head on. But let me tell you, you know, the economies of the great economies that are of course upcoming this country, and they're ruling this they're ruling the world.
Yes.
And I tend to agree that it is good to try to, of course, share the state powers, and sharing these state powers is by trying to, of course, trying to share the presidential powers and the executive powers by introducing the office of the premier.
Yes.
The office of premier, of course, he'll be the head of government, and the president will be the head of state. And of course, having the head of state, of course, he will be a symbol of national unity, as he is as of today.
Yes.
And of course, he'll also be the promoter of our international interests, regardless of our socio-economic and security situations in the country. And the premier also running the government should be responsible of the economic and societal policies that the country will be running on. And when you have a person who is focusing on the internal policies of the economy of the country, then he be liable of policies that, of course, they will see Kenya thrive. and we have a person, he'll be the responsible for our home affairs in the country and coordinating all the agencies of the government. And then we have a president who is very charismatic and smart to of course, call it out in the international table, and I like how he does, but I also like how President Uhuru was able to actually locate a place for Kenya when it's come to international level and the international affairs of the global. So that's it. Of course, we need the office of the premier, and of course, having said that, we also need an official opposition leader. Of course, we need a strong opposition. We need a strengthened opposition, of course, which has been given mandate to oppose the government, and of course also to introduce the shadow cabinets. Yeah, we need, of course, this opposition to be loyal for the government. It doesn't mean that the opposition, if the opposition further, then even today, if Raila Odinga was very loyal about the opposition, he would have, of course, introduced the shadow cabinets. It doesn't need the government to strengthen his party as an opposition. Actually, that's one thing that he's weak. He's getting weak on running even the smallest unit of the political giants, his political opposition party. So there's that dire need, and I would propose, and I would, of course, support the division of labor and the, of course, sharing responsibilities and duties into the executive and presidential level.
That's a yes. That's it.
Castro, you don't need to take a lot of time with a lot of words trying to vote a yes or no.
I did not vote yes or no. But I explained whatever I said.
Anyway,
that's the reason what I said. Anyway, I said the reason why.
From that conversation, the constitution is explicit on whatever you are trying to say. The division of labor has already been done under Schedule 275.
No, of course. On the responsibilities of the government, the government arms of the government, which they should act interdependently, and they should rely on each other when it comes to the performance of their duty. But whatever we are asking now, we are asking about the sharing of powers, presidential and executive powers. It is in good thing. It is in a good thinking of this country moving forward.
Fantastic explanation.
Very.
Just let me look at it, Sankara. Let me just direct you to this particular. We'll have 6 minutes for this conversation. I would like us to get it all right. Here's a question. I want to take you back to what happened in 2005, and there was one man who reminded us yesterday. Sankara, is what he said. That is Bujiri Wambugu. Is what he said. That see, we elected one Mwai back in 2002 with a landslide. Do you remember? In less than 18 months, that led to the birth of ODM, if you do remember, the Orange Democratic Movement. Less than 18 months, things were so bad that Raila left government and joined the opposition to convince Kenyans that voting no in the 2005 referendum would send Kibaki home, right? It was run on the basis of we need to correct the government. If you remember, that's how the referendum was born. Yeah, sure. And that's how ODM was born during that particular period of the referendum. Yeah, it became so strong, it became a movement. Sankara, do you imagine a scenario now where Raila Amolo Odinga is telling his supporters, oh, by the way, so many in this country, going by the 2022 elections, is will be moving across the country, and we don't know who's going to fund that as well, but moving across the country, telling his supporters, you see what the president is telling you over the other side through the UDA party. Please, I want you to support it as well. Are we going to have a split referendum, Sankara? And if so, then, if Mother Karua, the likes of Jeremiah Kioni right now, the likes of Eugene Wamalo, have come out outright themselves and said, this report is useless, do you think that this is going to be an opportunity for them then to come up with a faction that is going to push them all the way to 2027?
And that defines the dynamics in politics.
That's it.
When someone says politics is dynamic,
Yes.
I do say politics is dynamically dynamic.
That's it.
To add on the philosophical aspect on the dynamics of politics.
That's it.
Politics mutate and changes on a daily basis to align with the existing needs of the society. At the moment, from the conversation we've had, it is not reasonable for the opposition to leave opposition and join the government, to push for a constitutional amendment at the moment. And by the way, before I forget, the reason as to why both the opposition and the executive are pushing for Raila is suggesting for the plebiscite is because they know very well that just as the fate of BBI, the NADCO report may face the same adults. Any proposal, any idea to change or restructure the constitution and the governance structure of a country, or particularly the Kenyan concept, must originate from the people. That instills, reaffirms and experience the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. Now, these political giants have done their game. They've realized that the only place we are missing is the people's voice. We continue with this, the courts do us a blow. Now what do? You go to the people, lie to them how bad I am, keep them busy, urge them to vote in these concepts. Then we are going to work together. Now Raila is being sent to the public to go and keep his flock busy as the government continues to rape our economy. I want to tell you, for the sake of record, that in the world over, working together with the government doesn't mean supporting the government, every move the government makes. The question I would ask, not in a lamenting voice, but in a worried position, is how best should we go? I mean, how best is the interest of this referendum to the people of Kenya? Are we really going to the referendum to solve existing problems or not? By the way, back to your question, would this create an opportunity for the people of like Martha Karua and Jeremiah Kioni to rise? That still reaffirms the dynamics of politics. And let me tell you, leave alone even Martha Karua and ETC rising, it is our time. We are going to shine. I want to confirm to you, this will be our time. That these people are going to a referendum. The third voice that I've been advocating for, the independent constituency of the population that I've been an ardent agitator for, this is the time it's going to be birthed. And the moment it is birthed, this is a movement that is going to be backed by passion. A movement for the people within the legal confines of the law, because it's not an outlawed set. It's just a group of people who are going to disagree with both Jeremiah Kioni, President William Ruto, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and then they will be on their own. Because these figures have been here since time immemorial. They have witnessed, they are like the British Parliament that has witnessed the coronation, the sentencing to death of the kings and etc. They have been here since time immemorial. Even this economic turbulence that we've gone through as a country, some of them have witnessed. People like Musalia Mudavadi have been here when that scandal that he tried to explain. I worked with I can confidently confirm to you that I've worked with the president, I've worked with the Prime Cabinet Secretary as his youth leader. All these things and scandals, the explanations given, they've been here. So imagine we have been in a continuous season with problems and not solutions that has turned us as lamenters and not solution givers. We have several solutions that we can offer to this government, but the same people are still sitting at the helm of power. So what we need, and that's why that segment is going to rise, it is about the integrity, it is about the beliefs you have as an individual, because politics without consciousness is tantamount to terrorism. That's why we are experiencing economic terrorism from politicians, political terrorism. People are getting into power not to create solutions. People are getting into power to amass wealth. I was reading the Standard newspaper today.
Yes.
In an economy that everyone is suffering to put a food or a cup of tea on table, one is acquiring in a span of 3 months multi-million assets of worth 500 million, 264 million. You wonder, where do these people get the money? Do we really get into politics as young people to create solutions, or we get in to join the trend and maintain the status quo of the untouchables? We want to fill our pockets? No. Until when? If we join and maintain the game, when shall we experience the real change we've been agitating for as a country? It is only when we realize that too much wealth. Me, today, if I get around 200 million, let me tell you, for my case, I won't bother fighting much to get more. I will fight for everyone to be on the table, because you can't be buried with all this money. Why steal and loot and you'll die and leave them? You find them, they paraded like, how do you call, Lee funeral, whatever, Lee funeral stock. I saw Kenyans.
So that as well, that was insensitive. But here's the thing though, let's step out, by the way. But that's essentially what it is that we have for you this morning, by the way. And Castro, you only have to respond. After you speak, I won't speak. President Dr. William Ruto, Raila Amolo Odinga in the same side in a referendum, does it make it strong or weak?
Of course it makes it strong.
I'll call you, so we talk about that.
It makes it strong. I don't know what
so we talk about
I don't know what Mother Karua and Jeremiah Kiol confusion they are trying to bring, because that team is very confused. They don't know where they are in, so they can actually be able to rocket themselves. So we don't expect much from them. But whatever it's being proposed for Kenyans, I can say that no, it is better for our country. And although the government also need to look at some of the policies that they have, of course, try to make to lower the cost of living. I would agree that if we are giving much more time, some little time to this government, I believe they are heading to somewhere, and they'll be resuscitating this economy.
Guess what? My director's killing me. We gotta step out. We gotta step out. We gotta step out. We gotta step out. Sheila, can you please run our bed so we step out? That's it, guys. I will see you tomorrow for another session as well. Thank you very much.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located